Be strong.
Again, my name is Jeff Christian. I was a top NPC competitor, national competitor, and in my younger days, I was a better bodybuilder than I was somebody that knew anything about bodybuilding. In my older days, after all the trauma from injuries and car accidents and everything, I was a better coach than I was a bodybuilder, but was able to get my IFBB Pro card at the Universe in 2018. I have, again, coached guys by the hundreds, from guys that just wanted to get in shape to pro level. And my specialty in coaching was the last 2 weeks, preparing guys for contest, knowing how to get that 3D shrink wrapped look, and knowing how to manipulate water and all of that stuff. So let's talk about the fact that you want to pursue bodybuilding. And this is your dream. This is something you've always dreamed about, and you're going to do it. So I want to give you 4 things to consider long before we get into the nitty-gritty over the next few weeks about steroids and insulin and growth hormone and IGF-1 and peptides and all of those other things that you need to have a working knowledge of. And that is this. These 4 things are incredibly important for you to understand. And I'm going through these because I feel like one of the most important things that young people do is they accumulate bad knowledge, bad information. When I look at the internet and I go through and I see everything that is written, most of the time I laugh. I know most pros sit down, and if they look at that, they laugh as well, because quite honestly, most of what you see in forums just isn't true. People don't know what the guys really take. People surmise, they think they know, but let me give you a good example. At the Universe one year, I was talking to a competitor, and he was a pro. He is no longer alive. Unfortunately, he passed away last year at much younger than me, which is very sad. But we sat there and talked most of the day, and he asked me, he said, well, what did you do this year? And I told him, and I went through my stacks, my cycles. I went through how I did things, how I did my prep, all of that stuff. And he looked at me and he said, man, I'm just going to tell you. He said, I did things this year that quite honestly I've never done. He said, and I did things that were dangerous. I retired in 2019, and he passed away, man, just like I think last year. And what's sad is I won the Universe in 18, and he only lived to 21. So I really sit there and I think, man, was your pro card worth it? I can honestly say that it's not. But here are 4 things that you've got to consider. And you need to understand one very important principle. And that principle is this, that you cannot buy time. Time is your most precious commodity. And once you spend it, you can't get it back. So in your pursuit of bodybuilding, one of the things we're going to talk about is that you are going to expend large amounts of time. You only control your choices. You don't control consequences. Now, I say that for this reason. There is a verse in the Bible that says, whatever you sow, that's what you're going to reap. And unfortunately, what you sow in bodybuilding does not reap health. It reaps just the opposite. As you can see by all of the men and the women who seemingly are just dying off in large amounts over the last few years. The very first thing I want to share with you is this. The chances of you making it to the pros are extremely small. You have a better chance, in my estimation, to make it to the NBA or the NFL or the Major League Baseball because you do not have to be genetically gifted in one specific aspect of your physique to make it to those leagues. You can have multiple defects or whatever as far as muscle insertions or the way the muscle is shaped or whatever. Those things don't factor in to those leagues. But in bodybuilding, your insertions have to be right. The muscle bellies have to be right. You want to be a certain height and be able to have fascia that stretches, all of those things, be able to build that kind of muscle. So it's an incredibly difficult sport to make it in. So the chances of you making it are less than 1%. Now, again, many people will use that as motivation to use more steroids and try harder and waste their life on something they're never going to get. It's the harsh reality, and I've had so many guys come to me and say, Jeff, I'm going to be pro by next year. And I would tell them, brother, you're not going to be pro next year. You're not going to be pro in 10 years. You're not going to be pro in 20 years. And it is not because I'm trying to hurt your feelings. It is strictly because I want you to have a realistic view of what your giftedness is. So what I would tell you is, if you're really considering this, go to a local show, look at your 5th place guy or your 6th place guy and see if you match up to them. Don't just look at yourself in the mirror, because the mirror lies to you. What you see plays tricks on you. You want to go and you want to see if you truly measure up. Take pictures of yourself. See if you have that kind of genetic giftedness. So the chances of you making it to the pros are extremely slim. Now, number 2, you can expect that this sport is going to take years off of your life. I'm 56 years old now, and I have to be honest, I have no idea how long I have. To my knowledge right now, there are no major issues, but there again, I was 20 years out of the sport. I retired in my younger years, in my early 20s, didn't come back till I was 41. I didn't even walk into a gym until I was 41. So I have that sort of advantage because I had all of those years off of all of the drugs. But in my pursuit of my pro card from 41 to 50 years old, let me tell you something. There were immense amount of drug usage in that time. And the higher you make it in this sport, the more drug usage you have, the more damage you're going to do. And I know many coaches, many competitors that, like I said, are no longer with us because of kidneys that have gone bad, livers that have had to be replaced that went bad, guys that died of cancer, all of that stuff. I have a very good friend of mine right now who spent 2 years on growth hormone, PEG MGF, IGF-1, LR3, and I kept telling him, you've got to get off of that. You've got to get off of those things. I said, those things are only designed to be used in very short durations, but he would not listen to me. And I was in the gym about 6-7 months ago, and I get this text on my phone while I was leg pressing, and I get this text that said, I just found out I have stage 4 cancer. It's in his liver, it's in his chest bone, it's in his spine, and it's also in his thyroid. And all of this is directly attributable to those things that he was taking. Sadly, he won't be with us very long. And I feel terrible for him. But in our talking together, when I went to see him in the hospital, I said, Jimmy, you know what this is from, don't you? He said, yeah, I know what it's from. And let me just tell you a warning. If you are susceptible within your genetic makeup to cancer and tumors and all of those things, if it's in your bloodline, do not take this stuff. But most guys that I know and most guys that I've coached all the way into the pro ranks, you'll find out most of them are broke. They're scouring, looking for drugs at cheaper rates. Most of them are selling steroids to get their own steroids. Most are trying to buy a couple of bottles of testosterone at a time. those drugs are expensive. Growth hormone, insulin, all of those things are expensive, and you're paying a huge price for it. So you can expect to be broke, not just from drugs, you can expect to be broke because a lot of times you can't afford the amount of food. And as we see, inflation is getting worse and worse. Man, it's really getting tough to support that kind of lifestyle. You're going to find out that lifestyle is extremely hard. And then number 4, bodybuilding will ruin your relationships. I can tell you this, when you are bodybuilding and you have 2 people in a house that are dieting for 33, 34, 36 weeks, each for a show, things get pretty crazy. And especially when you're a guy that is taking an immense amount of drugs to get to these shows, you're going to find out that psychotically or cut. And then number 4, bodybuilding is going to ruin your relationships. I don't care if it's your boyfriend, your girlfriend. It can ruin family relationships with your mom and dad, your brothers, your sisters. It is amazing. The amount of drugs that you take are going to affect the way you think. I know when you're on a large amount of tren, you will swear that the sky is yellow, even though it's blue, but you are so convinced that that sky is yellow, and if anybody tells you otherwise, you are going to fight because you're just convinced you're right about everything. The drugs really do affect you in that way. And when you have a husband and a wife in the same household and they're both doing drugs to get ready for these shows, it really puts a strain on a marriage. I can tell you this from our standpoint, everybody thought we were the perfect pro couple. My wife was a pro figure competitor. I'm a pro bodybuilder. We're both getting ready for shows, but the truth is we were not a perfect couple at all. We were on the verge of divorce. And when I got right with the Lord in 2019, I'm going to tell you, it changed our household. That's when, after I got injured, the lockdowns came and all that stuff, we got right with the Lord, and everything changed in our house, man. And that's the only time it changed, is when I laid all that stuff down and moved on in life. But bodybuilding will ruin your relationships. I know so many couples that they cheat on each other constantly, and they don't desire to. But the problem is when you see those perfect bodies all the time, or what you consider perfect bodies, it does something to you mentally and emotionally. You become unsatisfied with what you have, and you think you want something else. And a lot of that is because the effects of the drug on your body, the amount of testosterone you're taking, you can't control your libido. And the Bible says something very interesting. It says the eye is never filled with seeing. In other words, you can never get enough. And when you can't get enough or be satisfied, you cannot be in relationships, and it will just destroy you. That's why a lot of bodybuilders and guys in the fitness industry are known as dogs. And I can tell you, I've been there. It's not a good place to be. I have ruined relationships in the past because of my own selfishness. So understand, bodybuilding, the chances of you making it are incredibly slim. Number 2, expect to take years off of your life, and you need to consider very carefully whether you really want to pursue that. And then number 3, expect to be broke, because to facilitate this type of lifestyle is very difficult. And unless you reach the top, there's no money in it. We were very fortunate that we were able to coach a large amount of people, fly to California 2 weeks out of the month to coach clients out there that were very wealthy. We were very fortunate that we had a clothing line and sponsors and all of that stuff. But not everybody makes it there because it's incredibly difficult. So understand, you're going to be broke most of the time. And then finally, just figure this one thing out if you can. What's the most important thing that we do as humans? That is, we interact with each other. We have a need for community. We have a need for people, and we have a need for closeness and for somebody to love us and understand us. And the problem in bodybuilding is it's all about you. It's all about feeding you. It's all about taking care of you. It's all about what you look like, how you feel. All of it is about you, and it will never be about the us. Because bodybuilding is an idol. It's its own God, and you set yourself up for failure that way. That is why, unless you get out, you are going to find yourself miserable. Look, I know top competitors, and I don't know one of them that's what I would term genuinely really happy. So I hope you'll consider what we're talking about. Tune in next week, please. We're going to start getting into the nitty-gritty of some things. And if you have any loved ones that are interested in bodybuilding, trying to go this direction, or you see them falling into this type of lifestyle, have them watch these episodes, because I promise you, we're going to get into some pretty gritty stuff. The other thing is, if you have questions, go ahead and please put them in the comments below. I'm happy to answer questions, and I will make sure that you're taken care of there. And if you would, please subscribe if you haven't already. We're a new channel. This is something completely new to us. We're just kind of doing it for fun, and I hope to at least offer some good advice, okay? Have a great day, and we'll see you back here next week on Wednesday night at 6 o'clock.
Be strong.